The camera opens on a quiet street in Calabasas just after sunset. The sky is glowing orange, palm trees sway in the warm wind, and somewhere behind massive gated walls, one of the most recognizable women on the planet is sitting in complete silence staring at a phone screen. Not speaking, not moving, just reading. And according to multiple people close to this situation, that moment may have been the exact second everything changed. Because the message on that screen wasn't about makeup. It wasn't about fashion. It wasn't even about reality television. It was a pitch. A single idea. One that would quietly pull together two of the biggest forces in modern entertainment and create a Netflix project that nobody saw coming. Kim Kardashian and the creator of Bridgerton. At first, people laughed at the rumor. A teen drama? Kim Kardashian producing scripted television? Working alongside one of Netflix's most powerful storytellers? It sounded impossible. But then insiders started talking. Meetings were confirmed. Executives were suddenly flying back and forth between Los Angeles and London. Young actors began privately auditioning under fake project names. And within weeks, Hollywood realized this wasn't gossip anymore. Something real was happening behind closed doors. But what nobody understood yet was why. Why would Kim Kardashian suddenly pivot into emotionally charged teen drama storytelling? Why would the creator behind one of Netflix's biggest global hits agree to collaborate with someone most critics never took seriously as a producer? And more importantly, what kind of show were they actually making? Because according to early leaks, this wasn't going to be another glossy high school series filled with shallow romance and predictable drama. No. This project was reportedly darker, sharper, more personal, and disturbingly close to the realities young people are actually living through right now. Social pressure, online humiliation, addiction to validation, private identities collapsing in public. The kind of emotional chaos hidden underneath curated Instagram lives. And the deeper reporters dug into the origins of the series, the stranger the story became. Because this wasn't just a business move. For Kim Kardashian, some people believe this project is personal. Very personal. And if that's true, then this Netflix series may end up revealing far more about her own fears, her own family, and her own future than anyone expected. But before we get there, you need to understand how this entire thing started. Because the truth is, this collaboration almost never happened. And the first meeting between Kim Kardashian and the Bridgerton creator reportedly ended in complete silence. Not excitement. Not celebration. Silence. The kind that makes people in the room nervous. The kind where nobody knows what's about to happen next. And according to one insider, that silence lasted nearly 15 seconds, which, in Hollywood, feels like forever, especially when millions of dollars are potentially on the table. The story reportedly begins nearly a year before the public heard anything. At the time, Kim Kardashian was already quietly shifting her empire away from reality television. Most people didn't notice it immediately because the headlines still focused on celebrity relationships, fashion campaigns, and social media moments. But behind the scenes, her business strategy was evolving. Slowly, deliberately, and almost invisibly. Executives close to streaming platforms had reportedly begun taking her more seriously after several successful media projects connected to criminal justice documentaries and production consulting. For years, critics framed Kim as someone who simply existed in front of cameras. But what they ignored was how carefully she understood audience behavior, attention spans, emotional triggers, viral conversation cycles. She had spent nearly 2 decades learning how people consume stories. And eventually, Hollywood started realizing something uncomfortable. She might actually understand viewers better than traditional executives do. Especially younger audiences, teenagers, college students, people raised entirely inside social media culture. That demographic had become the most valuable audience in entertainment, and also the hardest to keep engaged. Networks were panicking. Streaming numbers were becoming unpredictable. Teen-focused shows exploded overnight, then vanished just as quickly. Executives desperately wanted another cultural obsession. Another Euphoria. Another Wednesday. Another Bridgerton-level social media phenomenon. Something bingeable. Something addictive. Something viewers couldn't stop discussing online. And somewhere during that industry-wide panic, Kim Kardashian reportedly started developing ideas. Not publicly. Privately. Quietly assembling writers, researchers, and producers to study what young audiences were emotionally responding to now. Not 5 years ago. No. What scared them? What obsessed them? What made them feel isolated? What made them stay awake at night scrolling endlessly? One researcher later claimed the project's earliest brainstorming documents included hundreds of screenshots from TikTok confession videos, anonymous Reddit posts, private Snapchat leaks, stories about anxiety, stories about body image, stories about loneliness, stories about teenagers living double lives online and offline. And strangely, the more research they collected, the darker the material became. Because underneath the glamorous filters and curated lifestyles, they kept finding the same emotional pattern repeating itself. Young people performing happiness while privately collapsing. And according to insiders, that realization deeply affected Kim, more than expected. Especially as a mother raising children in an environment she understands better than almost anyone else on Earth. Imagine that for a second. A woman who built one of the most famous personal brands in history, suddenly realizing the exact digital systems that made her powerful might emotionally destroy the next generation. That contradiction reportedly became the emotional center of the project. But Kim still needed the right storyteller, because understanding internet culture and building a prestige drama are two completely different things. And that's where the Bridgerton connection enters the story. At that point, the creator behind Bridgerton had already transformed Netflix's strategy forever. The show wasn't just successful. It became a global obsession. Fans analyzed scenes frame by frame. Clips flooded TikTok. Actors became instant celebrities overnight. The series proved something extremely important to Hollywood. Audiences were starving for emotionally addictive storytelling again. Not just action. Not just spectacle. Emotion, longing, secrets, relationships, tension, fantasy mixed with vulnerability. And according to several entertainment reporters, Kim Kardashian became fascinated by that formula. Not the costumes, not the romance, the emotional engineering behind it. How the creator could make viewers become intensely attached to characters within minutes. How conversations online exploded after every episode. How audiences emotionally invested themselves in fictional lives. That level of engagement is rare. And Kim reportedly wanted to understand how to recreate it in a modern teen setting. So eventually, through agents and Netflix executives, a meeting was arranged. Private. Small. No press. No announcements. Just a conversation. And insiders claim almost nobody expected it to work. Hollywood still separates people into categories. Reality stars stay reality stars. Prestige creators stay prestige creators. Crossing those worlds often fails badly. So when news of the private meeting quietly spread among executives, reactions were mixed. Some were curious. Others mocked it immediately. One producer reportedly laughed and said, "This sounds like a publicity stunt that'll disappear in 2 weeks." But then the meeting happened. And suddenly, nobody was laughing anymore. According to multiple insiders, the atmosphere inside that room was unexpectedly intense. Kim reportedly arrived with detailed notes. Not vague ideas. Detailed notes. Character psychology. Narrative arcs. Social media behavior research. Examples of real teen experiences. Even visual references for emotional tone. That shocked people immediately, because it wasn't what they expected from her. But the real turning point came later during the discussion. At one point, the conversation shifted toward teenage identity and public performance online. And according to someone familiar with the meeting, Kim said something that completely changed the energy in the room. She reportedly said, "Kids don't know who they are anymore when nobody's watching." Silence followed. Not awkward silence. Thinking silence. The kind where everyone suddenly realizes the conversation became real. And apparently, the Bridgerton creator leaned back and simply asked, "What scares you most about that?" That question reportedly changed everything. Because for nearly an hour afterward, the discussion stopped being about business. It became personal. They talked about pressure, visibility, fame culture, teenagers raised online, the emotional consequences of living permanently observed. And according to insiders, by the end of that meeting, both sides realized they weren't building a typical teen drama anymore. They were building something emotionally uncomfortable. Something designed to feel painfully current. Something capable of making viewers recognize themselves. But what happened next changed everything. Because once Netflix executives heard early concept details, the project suddenly became a priority. Fast. Development accelerated almost immediately. Writers were contacted under strict confidentiality agreements. Fake project titles were created to avoid leaks. Casting scouts quietly began searching for unknown young actors instead of established teen celebrities. That decision was intentional. The creators reportedly wanted faces audiences didn't already associate with influencer culture. They wanted authenticity, imperfection, young performers who felt emotionally real instead of manufactured. And according to one casting assistant, auditions became unusually emotional. Teen actors weren't just reading scripted scenes. Some were asked questions about loneliness, online pressure, identity, fear of public embarrassment. One insider claimed multiple auditions ended with actors crying after scenes because the material felt too close to reality. That's when rumors inside Hollywood started intensifying. People realized this show wasn't aiming for simple entertainment. It wanted emotional impact. And once small details leaked online, the internet exploded. Some fans were excited instantly. Others were deeply skeptical. Social media filled with reactions. How is Kim Kardashian producing serious drama? This sounds fake. Wait. Bridgerton creator and Kim Kardashian. No way Netflix gives this a huge budget. But then journalists started confirming details one by one. And suddenly skepticism turned into curiosity. Because the combination made no sense. Which made people even more interested. That's the strange psychology of entertainment. The more unlikely something feels, the more audiences obsess over whether it might actually work. And Netflix understood that perfectly. Quietly, strategically, they allowed just enough information to leak. Not full details. Fragments. A mysterious collaboration. A darker tone. A modern emotional thriller disguised as teen drama. Every tiny leak fueled more conversation. And then came the first major rumor that truly changed public perception. According to several insiders, the show's central storyline allegedly revolves around a teenage girl whose entire identity begins unraveling after a private moment is secretly exposed online. Not through hacking. Not through revenge. But through someone she trusted. That detail hit audiences hard immediately because it felt believable. Terrifyingly believable. And suddenly people realized the show might tap into something much deeper than celebrity branding. Trust. Humiliation. Digital permanence. The fear that one mistake can follow you forever. Teen audiences especially reacted strongly because many already live with that anxiety daily. One screenshot. One rumor. One leaked conversation. One embarrassing clip. And life changes instantly. The project reportedly explores exactly that emotional fragility. But behind all the excitement, another question started quietly circulating through Hollywood. Was Kim Kardashian drawing inspiration from her own life? Because the parallels became difficult to ignore. Public exposure. Private moments becoming global conversation. Identity shaped by media narratives. Years of scrutiny. And according to entertainment insiders, Parts of the creative team privately acknowledged that Kim's experiences absolutely influenced the emotional themes of the series. Not directly, not autobiographically, but psychologically. That matters. Because audiences can sense authenticity. And whether people love Kim Kardashian or criticize her, one thing is undeniable. She understands what it feels like to live under constant observation, better than almost anyone alive. That emotional truth may end up becoming the project's biggest strength. But there was still one major problem. The script wasn't working. Not at first. Early drafts reportedly struggled to balance prestige storytelling with modern teenage realism. Some versions felt too polished. Others felt too dark. One insider claimed Netflix executives worried the show might become emotionally exhausting instead of addictive. And behind closed doors, tensions reportedly started building between creative teams. Different visions, different pacing, different audience expectations. At one point, according to rumors, production nearly stalled completely after executives rejected an entire storyline during development meetings. That's when the collaboration faced its biggest test. Because this is where most Hollywood projects quietly collapse. Ideas sound exciting initially. Meetings create momentum. But once scripts fail, everything falls apart. Especially when huge public expectations already exist. And yet somehow, this project survived. Not because everyone agreed, but because disagreement reportedly forced the creators to go deeper emotionally. They stopped asking what would trend online, and started asking something more dangerous. What truth are young people terrified to say out loud? That question reshaped the show entirely. Writers reportedly interviewed teenagers anonymously. Not celebrities, not influencers, ordinary students. And the answers disturbed them. Teenagers describing themselves as brands, feeling unable to disconnect from performance, measuring self-worth through attention, living in fear of screenshots. One 17-year-old reportedly said, "If nobody reacts to your post, it feels like you disappeared." That line supposedly ended up influencing an entire episode. And suddenly the show found its identity. Not just drama, not just scandal. Emotional survival inside digital culture. That became the heartbeat of the project. And once the scripts evolved in that direction, everything accelerated again. Netflix executives reportedly became extremely confident. Budgets increased. Marketing discussions intensified. International rollout strategies began early. People inside the industry started whispering something surprising. This might actually become huge. But no one could predict what happened next. Because before production officially began, a private table read reportedly took place in Los Angeles. And according to someone present, the room went silent by the end. Not polite silence. Emotional silence. Several people allegedly cried. One executive reportedly walked out afterward and immediately called another producer saying, "This doesn't feel like a teen show. It feels like a warning." That single description spread quietly through Hollywood circles. A warning. And once people heard that, curiosity turned into obsession. Because now audiences weren't just expecting entertainment. They were expecting relevance. Something emotionally dangerous. Something that might force uncomfortable conversations. And ironically, that's exactly what makes modern television explode culturally. Not perfection. Recognition. People want stories that reflect fears they already carry privately. Especially younger viewers. Especially now. But while anticipation grew publicly, Kim Kardashian herself reportedly became more emotionally invested than anyone expected. Friends allegedly noticed how seriously she treated development meetings. Late-night calls. Constant revisions. Long discussions about tone and realism. One insider claimed she became fixated on avoiding fake teen dialogue. She reportedly hated scripts where teenagers sounded like adults pretending to be young. That attention to authenticity surprised even experienced writers. And slowly, perceptions inside Hollywood started changing. People who initially dismissed the project began reconsidering. Because regardless of public opinion, Kim Kardashian clearly understood one critical thing. Attention alone is no longer enough. Modern audiences demand emotional honesty, especially Gen Z viewers. They detect artificial storytelling instantly. And this project, according to early reactions, may have found a way to combine glossy entertainment with emotionally raw realism, which is incredibly difficult. But the deeper production moved forward. The stranger certain rumors became, because insiders started hinting that the show's final episodes reportedly take an unexpectedly dark turn. Not violent, psychological. A shift from social drama into emotional collapse. And some people inside Netflix allegedly worried the ending might become controversial. Why? Because it forces viewers to confront a deeply uncomfortable question. What happens when an entire generation forgets who they are without an audience? That theme reportedly sits at the center of everything. And suddenly the project became larger than celebrity gossip. Larger than streaming competition. It became cultural commentary. And maybe that's why audiences are already obsessed. Because whether people admit it or not, most of us understand that fear now. The fear of invisibility. The fear of judgment. The pressure to constantly perform happiness. Social media created a world where people can be surrounded by attention and still feel completely alone. And according to insiders, this series intends to show exactly how emotionally destructive that contradiction can become. But what truly shocked Hollywood was the reaction from younger Netflix employees after early footage screenings. Some reportedly described scenes as uncomfortably accurate. Others admitted certain moments reminded them of their own teenage experiences online. One assistant allegedly left a screening room visibly